There is an exhaustion that a good night's sleep just can't fix. A sadness so dense, so silent, that it makes your own bedroom feel like an airless prison. You lay your head on the pillow. Hours pass. The night drags on, but relief never comes. Your mind simply won't shut off. Your chest tightens in a way no medical exam can explain. And the worst part isn't the pain itself. The worst part is that cold, agonizing feeling that you are fighting this war completely alone. You pray, you cry, you beg for help, but it feels like the entire heaven is in absolute silence. If you've ever felt the urge to simply close your eyes and disappear, to avoid dealing with the problems of the next day, I need you to pay close attention right now. Because what you are feeling is not a lack of faith. It is not spiritual weakness. And most importantly, it is not the end of your story. The Bible hides a fascinating answer for the days when our soul just can't fight anymore. And this answer isn't a harsh sermon. It isn't a demand. It's one of the most real and raw accounts the scriptures have ever recorded. What does God do when one of his greatest servants hits rock bottom and asks to die? Believe me, heaven's reaction will completely change how you view your own pain. Think of the strongest man you've ever heard of, someone who faced down crowds, who wasn't afraid to confront powerful kings, someone God himself used to call fire down from heaven. His name was Elijah. He was the most respected and feared prophet of his time. He had just experienced the greatest miracle of his entire life. He defeated 450 false prophets all by himself on top of a mountain. He saw the impossible happen right before his eyes. Anyone would imagine that after such a crushing victory, Elijah's faith would be unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable. But the human mind is a dangerous terrain, and emotional exhaustion doesn't choose who it will attack. Just hours after this massive miracle, Queen Jezebel sent a message to Elijah, a single death threat, a single sentence dripping with hate. And it was enough. The man who didn't fear an entire army suddenly collapsed. His mind broke. Elijah didn't just flee, he ran into the desert, the most isolated, scorching, and empty place he could find. The sacred text tells us he walked all day long until his physical and mental strength were completely drained. He found a tree in the middle of nowhere, sat beneath it, and prayed the saddest prayer a human being can utter. He asked God to take his own life. He said, "I have had enough, Lord. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." Elijah's depression didn't stem from a sin, but from brutal burnout. His battery was completely drained. You know that moment when you give everything you have at work, in your family, in your relationship, and it still feels like nothing goes right? That moment when you feel sucked dry, as if they are demanding a strength from you that simply no longer exists inside your body. That is exactly how Elijah felt under that lonely tree. He wanted to give up on everything. And this is where the narrative turns upside down. This is where the sacred text reveals the most intimate and caring side of God. The creator of the universe was looking at his fallen, destroyed prophet begging for death. What do you think God did? He didn't yell. He didn't judge. He didn't call Elijah weak or ungrateful. God did something that religion often forgets to teach us. The first thing God did when he saw his servant completely destroyed wasn't to deliver a sermon about a lack of faith. God didn't demand that Elijah get up immediately to prove his worth, nor did he order him back to the front lines of the battle. Quite the opposite. The text says Elijah simply fell asleep right there on the hard, hot, unforgiving desert ground. And while he slept the deep sleep of exhaustion, God sent an angel. The angel didn't appear in shining armor or with a heavy message of rebuke. The angel touched him gently, with utmost care, and said, "Get up and eat." When Elijah opened his tired eyes, there was bread baked over hot coals and a jar of fresh water right next to his head. God knew perfectly well that before healing Elijah's soul, he needed to restore that man's physical body. Sometimes we over-spiritualize our pain and our anguish. We think all anxiety and deep sadness are just invisible weaknesses, when in fact, it's often just our own body begging for rest and care. You cannot maintain a strong, armored mind living inside a body that is crumbling from extreme stress, sleepless nights, and the crushing weight of routine. God took care of Elijah's biology before treating his theology. Elijah ate, drank, and, proving the depth of his exhaustion, went back to sleep. He was so broken inside and out that he needed a second round of sleep and food. The angel returned, touched him a second time, and warned him that the journey ahead would still be very demanding. Strengthened by that meal delivered by heaven itself, Elijah walked for 40 days and 40 nights non-stop until he reached the mountain of God. When he reached the top of that massive mountain, he sought out the darkest, most enclosed place possible. He went into a cave and hid in there. That brave prophet was still hurting. He was still trying to understand why he felt so isolated and empty inside. It was then that the Creator's voice finally broke the silence of that dark cave, asking a question that crosses millennia and reaches exactly where you are today. The voice asked, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" The prophet finally poured out everything that was stuck in his throat. He threw all his pain out without filters. He said he had been extremely zealous, that he had given his all, but that the people had abandoned the covenant and now wanted to take his life. Elijah felt like the last faithful man walking on earth. The loneliness embracing him was deafening. God then commanded him to step out of the cave and stand in the presence of the Lord. What happened in the following minutes is one of the greatest lessons in history on how God communicates with a mind that is already at its breaking point. First came a devastating wind, so violent it shattered the mountains and split the rocks in two. But the text makes a point to say that God was not in that destructive wind. After the wind, the earth shook with a terrifying earthquake, rocking the very ground beneath the prophet's feet. But God was not in the earthquake either. Immediately after, a consuming fire fell upon the place. Yet the Lord was not in the fire. The Creator didn't use chaos. He didn't use spectacle. He didn't use anything that could trigger more panic in his servant's traumatized heart. After all that deafening noise had passed, what remained was a very soft murmur, a gentle, delicate breeze, a calm and silent voice. And it was there, in that almost invisible sound of peace, that the true healing process began. That soft murmur wasn't just a sound in the middle of the desert. It was God himself, stepping down to the exact level of his prophet's fragility. Think about that for a moment. When someone is yelling at you, that person is usually far away, or trying to impose some kind of authority and power over your life. But when someone whispers, that person needs to be close. A whisper demands proximity. It demands intimacy. God didn't want to put on a show of power for a man who was already scared, hurting, and with a shattered mind. He lowered his tone of voice so that Elijah would have to lean in. And that is exactly what he is doing with you today, in the middle of this silence you found so painful. Often, deep sadness makes us believe that God has abandoned us, because we no longer see the great miracles or fires falling from heaven like before. But the undeniable truth is this: at rock bottom, God doesn't shout, he whispers. And it was there, at the entrance of that cold cave, listening to the gentle breeze, that Elijah had his reality check. The soft voice repeated the exact same question as before. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And once again the prophet poured out his pain. He repeated that he was alone, that he was the only one left, and that they wanted to take his life. But this time, God delivered the complete cure. And the divine remedy for Elijah's depression wasn't a pity-filled hug. It was 2 clear instructions that tore through the darkness of his mind once and for all. The first thing God did was give him a new direction. He told Elijah to go back the way he came, through the desert, and anoint new kings, along with a new prophet named Elisha. Do you know what that means? God was saying that Elijah's story didn't end under that tree where he asked for death. He still had a purpose. The cure for emotional paralysis is not lying down waiting for the pain to pass. The cure is movement. It is taking the next step, even while bleeding, even while afraid, even without understanding everything. When you think your life has absolutely no meaning left, heaven is simply preparing you for your greatest mission. The pain you are feeling right now is just the shell of your old strength breaking, so that a real dependence on God can be born. It is the pain that precedes the true cure. But the second thing God said was the final blow against Elijah's anguish. The prophet swore he was completely alone in the world. It was the loneliness crushing him. But God looked at him and revealed a deep secret. The Lord said, "I have reserved for myself 7,000 men in Israel whose knees have not bowed down to Baal." Pay close attention to this. Deep sadness has a terrible power to make us blind. Depression lies to you. It creates an optical illusion that convinces you that you are the only one suffering, the only one fighting, the only one left. God showed Elijah that the vision he had of his own life was contaminated by exhaustion. And perhaps the vision you have of your life today, of your marriage, of your future, is also stained by extreme burnout. You look in the mirror and only see defeat. You believe the voice of your anguish instead of believing the voice of the one who created you. But the gentle whisper of God is blowing over your cave this exact second, calling you back into the light. If you feel like you are carrying the world alone, and that no one around you understands the magnitude of the burden crushing your back, I need you to listen to this very carefully. You are not alone. This exhaustion that steals your sleep and makes your chest ache is not a condemnation, and it is certainly not the end of the line. The same God who sent an angel to feed Elijah in the desert and who spoke to him in a whisper inside a dark cave is the same God who sees your weariness today. He doesn't demand that you be an unbreakable machine all the time. He knows exactly when you can't take another step. And it is precisely in that moment, at your absolute limit, that the Creator steps down to tend to your pain. The story of Elijah teaches us that the cure for deep sadness doesn't come through massive spectacles or heavy religious demands. The cure begins with rest. The cure starts when you accept that you don't have to be strong all the time, that there is absolutely no problem in crying, in feeling afraid, in breaking down and saying out loud that you have reached your limit. True strength isn't hiding your pain behind a fake smile. It is having the courage to sit on the edge of your own desert and ask for help. And when you do that with a sincere heart, God doesn't answer with terrifying thunder, but with a gentle breeze that brings the relief no human word could ever provide. So, if today you feel exactly like that prophet, lying under a dry tree wishing it would all just end once and for all, remember the 2 instructions that changed the course of that story. First, get up and eat. Take care of your body. Rest your mind. Don't demand perfection from yourself when the only thing you need to do right now is just breathe and survive one more day. And second, listen to the gentle voice that keeps telling you there is still a long road ahead. Your dark cave is not your tomb. The unbearable pain you are feeling today is just the silent preparation for the anointing you will receive tomorrow. You are not alone, and the book of your life still has many blank chapters waiting to be written. But what if your situation is a little different? What if the pain paralyzing you isn't just everyday burnout? What if the thing truly crushing your soul is that mistake you make over and over again? The one that makes you feel a deep disgust for yourself? What if the anguish suffocating you at 3 a.m. doesn't come from work stress, but from an endless cycle of failures, addictions, and shames that you hide from everyone? The depression of burnout is brutal, but the anguish of guilt has the power to rot us from the inside out in a way few things in this world can. What does the Bible teach about those who fall repeatedly into the same mistake and can't break free no matter what? What does heaven do when our own mind refuses to forgive us? If you carry the weight of a failure that no one else knows about, click on the video appearing on your screen right now, because Jesus' exact answer for that burden will set you free once and for all.